Welcome to the weekend edition of the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. I'm Michael Thompson, and hello, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, on weekdays, it's all about the Fast 5, the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. On the weekend, though, we still keep it to 5 minutes, of course, but we're going to pick out the biggest business story of the week, the most remarkable business story, a sleeper story, one that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, and then our favourite story as well. Can I go first with the biggest story, Sean?
Please.
Look, for me, it's all about jobs and the fact that the unemployment rate no longer has a 3 in front of it. It jumped from 3.9% to 4.1% in January. It's the highest level in 2 years now. It was a bit worse than economists were expecting. There was virtually no jobs growth last month. The heat has really come out of the jobs market from those record lows that we saw post-pandemic, and the unemployment rate is likely to keep rising, forecast to get to around 4.5% mid-year. What's it mean, though? I mean, overall, it's still a pretty good number. It's another sign, though, as well, that the economy is slowing, that interest rate rises have done their thing. And, of course, the jobs rate does feed into interest rate expectations, and markets now expect the first cut by the Reserve Bank in September and 60% chance of another interest rate cut in December, Sean. Big news this week.
Sure was. My biggest story today really was the earnings season generally. It's been a bit of a surprise. Some of the companies that weren't supposed to do well have done well, and others not so much. Just mention a few of the big ones. Commonwealth Bank, pressure on profit margins, lost about 100,000 home loan customers, but it reckons the economy's ready for a soft landing. Telstra's doing well in the mobile area. Wesfarmers, well, Kmart and Bunnings are doing okay, not so much its lithium business. Goodman Group, that's a big industrial property company getting into data centers with AI out there. Everyone loves data centers. Origin Energy joined AGL, announcing massive profits. How about a little bit of relief for we customers? Lots of earnings out, Michael.
Yeah, it's a big story, big week, big few weeks, actually. Let's move on to most remarkable story. And I think there's one that just stands out here, Sean. This is an incredible story out of the US. Lyft, which is the rideshare company that's a big competitor to Uber over there, put out its profit forecast for 2024, predicting a hefty 500 basis point increase in its gross profit margin. That's 5%. Now, which sounds pretty amazing. Investors obviously thought it sounded pretty amazing as well. So they really got on board. Shares in Lyft soared. The market cap of the company climbed 2.8 billion Aussie dollars. Unfortunately, there was a typo in the forecast, an extra zero. The gross profit margin was actually forecast to grow by 50 basis points, not 500. So that's 0.5%, not 5%. That is pretty bad. Best part, very quickly though, Sean, was the CEO's response. He came out and said the buck stops with him. He didn't exactly say that though. He actually said, "My bad," which is not what you want to hear from the CEO of a NASDAQ-listed company, and certainly not what investors want to hear, as the value of that company tumbles back to probably where it should have been in the first place. A pretty remarkable mistake that was made, and probably could have been picked up before it went public.
Probably should have. Can I tell you my sleeper story of the week?
Yeah, go for it.
So the consumer's back and no one mentioned it. Consumer sentiment has rebounded to a 20-month high as the outlook for interest rates went from a rise to a fall. The Westpac Melbourne Institute Consumer Sentiment Index rose to its highest level since mid-22. That's about rates. That's about those stage 3 tax cuts, more people getting more money. About 2 in 5 people still expect another rate hike, but about a quarter don't think that's the case. The biggest risk to the economy at the moment is the household spending. If consumers feel better, then maybe it's not as big a risk as we thought. Interesting sleeper story, Michael.
Yeah, it certainly is. All right, the best category of all, Sean, on to the favourite story of the week. My favourite story this week, Sean, it's all about love. And I suppose it's because I'm a bit of a romantic, really, but it seems many Australians are. They forked out more than $450 million for Valentine's Day this year. It's down a little bit on last year, but there is a cost of living crisis going on. And yes, of course, it's shamelessly commercial and it's a bit of an arbitrary date, but I'm pretty good for the economy to inject that much spending in flowers, chocolates, fancy dinners, all that kind of thing. Millennials spend the most, apparently, $334. Gen Z, $185. Gen X a bit behind on $142. But then baby boomers spend just $20 on Valentine's Day. It would be worse for them. I mean, they're clearly just kind of suffering through what has become a fairly big modern kind of occurrence, but it would be worse for them if they were living in India, where they'd have to suffer through a whole Valentine's week: Rose Day, Propose Day, Chocolate Day, Teddy Bear Day, Promise Day, Hug Day, Kiss Day, and then finally Valentine's Day. And of course, we can't talk about Valentine's Day without mentioning, Sean, the biggest romantic of them all, our Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, proposing to his partner Jodie Hayden on Valentine's Day. They had Italian at a Canberra restaurant. Then they had a nice little moment out on the balcony at the lodge where the Prime Minister, I'm assuming, got down on one knee and popped the question. Very, very happy story. Nice one for the Prime Minister, don't you think?
I think so. Very quick mention of my favourite story, the Super Bowl. 123 million viewers. Probably only the Apollo landing back in 1969 ever had more. $7 million for a 30-second ad. Average ticket price, $14,000. Apparently, 8 million pounds of guacamole was expected to be eaten on the day. On average, 120 footballs are used, but my favourite number, 16 million people were expected to skip work the day after Super Bowl on what's known as the least productive workday in the year in the US.
That is amazing. 5 minutes and pretty much everything you need to know in the world of business. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
We'll be back on Monday morning with the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Don't forget to hit follow and join us online on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook and X. I'm Michael Thompson, and this is the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed.